We got beautiful bluebird skies this morning. Loss Ratio here with another episode of Loss Ratio Talks About Insurance while he tries to ride a snowmobile. And we are continuing our conversation on the topic of underinsurance.
Well, now that sounds very interesting.
If you missed the first episode of this series, I highly recommend that you go back and watch that one. It will provide some really helpful context to this conversation, and you can find that episode back on my LinkedIn timeline or on the Loss Ratio YouTube channel. We just got 6 inches of fresh snow, and it is a beautiful morning here in northern Michigan. So in the last episode, we got pretty specific and hyper-focused talking about the agent, broker, or producer's role in this property underinsurance problem. So in this episode, we're going to move beyond agents, brokers, and producers and discuss the carriers.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
What is the carrier's role and responsibility in ensuring that the policies that they're issuing have proper insurance to value and are providing adequate coverage to indemnify their policyholders in the unfortunate event of a loss? Okay, hold on, straight stretch. Woo, baby! Loss Ratio likes to go fast.
I like to go fast.
Every once in a while. Okay, back to business. So let's discuss several different aspects of this carrier role and responsibility. Let's lay some quick, important groundwork first and just level set on current industry practice and protocol. We are breaking fresh trail now. Look at how gorgeous this is. Why would anyone want to live anywhere else? So how is that coverage A amount, the dwelling amount, set on a standard homeowner's insurance policy? As we discussed in the last episode, virtually every homeowner's insurance policy has a replacement cost valuation that is created and is used as a baseline to determine what the appropriate coverage A amount should be. This replacement cost valuation is typically completed in one of 3 valuation tools. These are software and data vendors that have developed their own proprietary software with its own proprietary algorithms. These valuation tools accept property data inputs, things like square footage and roofing material, siding material, foundation type, flooring and wall finishes, ceiling finishes, etc. And once all of that data has been entered, it will then spit out a replacement cost valuation.
Okay, now I get it.
And that replacement cost valuation figure should reflect what it would actually cost to rebuild a residential structure if that structure was completely destroyed in an unfortunate claim scenario. So, very typically when an agent is writing a new policy, they would input a handful of those data points into this valuation software, which is being provided to the agents by the carriers. The agent will get that valuation figure and then hopefully set the appropriate coverage A based on the valuation. So this leads us to really 2 primary talking points for this conversation of the carrier's role and responsibility. And the first one has everything to do with data verification. Can and should an insurance carrier fully trust that every application that's being submitted by agents' offices has had the appropriate due diligence completed, that that valuation has been completed to the best of the agent's ability, and ultimately that the valuation is correct? The unfortunate reality here is that a high percentage of the time, the valuation that's being completed and submitted by the agent's office is just not correct. And again, it is not my intention here to pile on agents in any way, shape, or form. This is just the reality based on my own personal experience as an agent and on the inspection vendor side, having reviewed tens of thousands of agent-completed valuations. Many agents very often are only inputting the minimum required amount of data to actually get a valuation. And in many cases, that minimum amount of data is quite literally none.
Zero, zilch.
Because all of these valuation tools have their own data sets that would commonly be referred to as pre-fill data. So what this looks like for an agent who's writing a new policy is open up your carrier-provided valuation software. Again, it's going to be one of 3 primary players in this space. Type in the property address of the home that you're going to insure, and the software will pre-populate all of those data fields based on data that they believe to be accurate. And I emphasize believe to be accurate. Another unfortunate reality is that very often this pre-fill data is just not extremely accurate. Again, I've seen tens of thousands of these. Let's go this way. This is a really cool lake over here. I caught a lot of fish there. As an inspection vendor, I kind of get this unique perspective of not only seeing these pre-filled valuations on a regular basis, but then also seeing our results from a field inspection or a policyholder self-inspection, which means I have visibility to compare the pre-fill property data to actual real-world photo verified data. And it's based on that personal first-hand experience that I can absolutely say that pre-fill data is hit or miss when it comes to accuracy. So for many agents and many policy applications submitted to carriers that are based on pre-fill data only are just not generating highly accurate replacement cost valuations. So again, this brings me back to the question, should carriers be validating this replacement cost valuation data on their own? Now, I will admit that I am slightly biased based on the nature of the work that my company performs for carriers. However, I also believe that the massive underinsurance issues nationwide do strongly validate my opinion here. And I must say here that some carriers do a much better job than others in terms of validating this data. And I've already hinted at it, but what exactly do I mean when I say validate the data? Well, the most prominent and I would argue most accurate way to do this is to actually inspect that property. Get eyeballs on that risk and visually verify that all of the property data that was entered into the valuation is accurate and correct. And a quick little industry history lesson here. This property data validation through inspection happened way more often in decades past than it does today. Over the bridge, there's the river. Caught a lot of fish there too. Over the past several decades, carriers have been putting a ton of effort into optimizing their property underwriting workflows. And that's certainly not a bad thing in and of itself. However, in many cases, what this has practically meant is a much stronger dependence on pre-fill data and much fewer property inspections actually taking place to validate that data. Just to give you an idea with some very ballpark figures, 2 decades ago, most property insurance carriers would have been inspecting around 80% of their new business policies. Fast forward to today, and now for most carriers, that number is actually less than 20%.
That's a big change.
So obviously, fewer property inspections, less data validation happening, and therefore less accurate valuations on the whole. You might have guessed it, but loss ratio has caught a lot of fish here too. Okay, back on the trail. And look, now I get it on the carrier side. Fast and efficient quoting and policy issuance is also important. It's what consumers today are demanding. And let's be honest, property inspections are generally not a fun and efficient experience for anyone. So I totally understand trying to minimize their use wherever possible. However, this is a classic example of speed and efficiency over accuracy. And when it comes to something like replacement cost valuations and ensuring proper coverage A on your homeowner's insurance policies, accuracy could not be more important. Too much fun.
How is that even possible?
And quite frankly, this is one of the major reasons why I am so excited about self-inspection. Self-inspection is providing to carriers today the best happy medium. It's providing that highly accurate property data validation without losing efficiency or adding overwhelming underwriting expense. I am super excited that a growing number of carriers are leveraging self-inspection to help address this underinsurance issue. Before we wrap up here, I want to get to that second talking point. While it's true that the vast majority of policies are being written by agents, brokers, and producers, there is a quickly growing segment of homeowners business that is being written through direct channels. And while this is happening primarily in the insurtech space, there are some larger, more traditional carriers who have always handled their distribution in-house rather than working through captive or independent agents. So what about these scenarios where there is no agent or broker involved to verify property data and ensure that valuations are complete and accurate? Well, to answer that question, I want to share a personal experience that I had shopping my own homeowner's insurance last year. I hopped onto one of these direct-to-consumer carrier websites to get a quote for my home. And the process from a valuation perspective was quite fascinating to me. All I had to do was type in my property address. The quote flow on the website pulled up and displayed existing property data that they presumably received from one of the 3 valuation providers. Now, fortunately, and to their credit, they gave me the opportunity to update and make corrections to that pre-filled data, but I was honestly shocked at how inaccurate it was. So let me run through it real quick. The living space square footage was over 1,000 square feet off.
That's not good.
The roofing material was incorrect.
That's not good either.
The bathroom count was incorrect.
That's really bad.
And the foundation type was incorrect.
This is getting out of hand was my point.
Now, just out of my own curiosity, when I first completed this quote, I didn't make any corrections to that incorrect data because I was extremely curious to see what coverage amount they would recommend and sell to me. It literally took me about 90 seconds to get to the point where they were ready to accept my payment and issue the policy. In less than 3 minutes total, from start to finish, with the click of a button, I could have purchased a policy that they recommended to me with a Cub-A amount $130,000 less than my existing policy.
And that's a problem.
I'm confident that my existing policy is accurate based on my knowledge and experience, and this, again, only further validated my thoughts and opinion on this underinsurance topic. Now, granted, if I had purchased that policy online, I suppose there is a small chance that this direct-to-consumer carrier would have ordered a property inspection or had me do a self-inspection. But again, with industry-wide property inspections happening on 20% or less of new business policies, there is a high likelihood that that never would have happened. And as a consumer, as a homeowner, I would unknowingly be underinsured by over $100,000. Now, my intention here is obviously not to rag on D2C players. This is just one more component that is playing a factor into the nationwide underinsurance issue. So let me just wrap up here and recap briefly. Yes, carriers play a massive role and have a significant amount of responsibility in ensuring that the policies that they're issuing have accurate ITV. And carriers by and large understand this. It's in their best interest to have accurate ITV, and they know that. However, to fully delegate that responsibility onto their distribution channels or onto the property data providers or even onto their policyholders themselves is just not producing accurate results that adequately protect consumers.
We can do better than that.
And finally, I am very excited to see many carriers innovating in this space and walking that fine line between speed, efficiency, and accuracy. I'm going to wrap up there. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. As always, please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Where am I right? What have I gotten wrong? I'd love to learn from you, and let's keep the conversation going.